In this lesson, you will learn how to multiply polynomials. Now, before we can multiply polynomials, we first need to brush up on multiplying a monomial by a polynomial. So for example, something along these lines, 2x times x plus 4. And here we've learned before we can just distribute, right? We take 2x times x to get 2x squared, 2x times 4 to get 8x, so I can multiply and get 2x squared plus 8x. That should be review, and if you can do that, you can multiply polynomials together because we're doing the same exact thing. If you had a binomial, so something like 2x plus 1 times x plus 4, all I do is I'm going to distribute, but doing it more than one time. So we distribute this 2x times x and then times the 4 like we just did over here. Nothing has changed so far. So we get 2x squared plus 8x. But then you're going to take this 1 and distribute this as well. 1 times x and 1 times 4. So what I'm going to get would be the 2x times x gives me 2x squared. 2x times 4 gives me 8x. And then 1 times the x gives me 1x. 1 times 4 gives me 4. So I'm basically done. I just need to combine like terms. Here we have an 8x and a 1x. We can add those together and we get 9x. And that's all there is to it. You're just distributing, but you're doing it multiple times. So we can use that same concept with any number of terms in the polynomial. So we could even do trinomials or with 4 terms, etc. So here we see the same thing. Same concept where we're going to multiply, we're going to distribute multiple times. We take the 2x squared times x, 2x squared times the 4. And then we do that with the x. So we have x times x, then x times 4. And then distribute the negative 1. Negative 1 times x and negative 1 times 4. So you're just distributing, but doing it multiple times. So 2x squared distributed would give me 2x squared times x, which would give me 2x to the third power. 2x squared times 4 gives me 8x squared. X times x would give me x squared. X times 4 gives me 4x. And then distribute the negative 1. Negative 1 times x gives me negative x. Negative 1 times 4 gives me a negative 4. So then I can combine like terms and we're done. So we have 8x squared plus 1x squared, and then the 4x and the negative x. So 8 plus 1x squared gives me 9x squared. 4 minus 1x would give me 3x, and then the negative 4 is out at the end. So that would be my solution if you're told to multiply those polynomials. I'd like to look at now 3 special scenarios with still exactly the same concept. So here I want to show you if you had 2x plus 3 squared. And I'm showing this because even though it's exactly the same thing, many people will make a mistake. So when you see a 2x plus 3 squared, I'm going to show you how to do it, and then I'll explain to you the mistake. So 2x plus 3 squared means we have 2x plus 3 multiplied by itself. So what I do is I'm going to distribute, just like we did in the last examples. Here we have the 2x distributed, 2x times 2x, and then 2x times 3. We get a 4. 2 times 2 is 4, x squared. And then 2x times 3 gives me a 6x. And then do the same thing again. 3 times a 2x and 3 times 3. We distribute multiple times. So 3 times 2x is 6x, 3 times 3 is 9. And then here we can combine like terms. 6x plus 6x would give me a 12x. So that is how you're supposed to do it. And that is my solution. Notice nothing is different than what we just showed you. The mistake that people make very often is they see the squared and they forget that you need to multiply the 2x plus 3 times 2x plus 3. What people will tend to do is they'll say, oh, the 2x squared would give me 4x squared. 2 squared is 4, x squared is x squared. And then they say, oh, 3 squared gives me 9. And that is all they do. But they forget that that is not how you do it. You're multiplying 2x plus 3 times itself. You're not just squaring the parts inside. So yes, in the previous lesson we learned that if there's a square, then I can distribute it, so to speak, through the parentheses, but that only works with multiplication. If this were 2x times 3, then I can do the squared with a 2x and the squared with a 3, and that would be correct. But the plus sign makes that law different. It's not the same thing. So just make sure that when you see a squared, you think of it as multiplying by itself. And this would not be your solution. I'm going to show you one more with raised to the third power, and same concept that we can use. And when you have it to the third power, you're multiplying 3 times. So if you see something along these lines, when you have to multiply something 3 times together, what you do is you're going to multiply 2 together, and then once you find that solution, multiply that solution by that third part. So for example, here, if I just multiply these two together first, 2x plus 3 times 2x plus 3, I would then get, as we just found, 4x squared plus 12x plus 9. Okay, we just did that over here. But then, once you have that, you're going to multiply again by this 2x plus 3 over here. Okay, so then you would distribute like we showed you in the previous slide, where I take 4x squared times 2x, 4x squared times 3. That would give me 8x cubed, and 4x squared times 3 gives me a 12x squared. Then do the same thing with the 12x times the 2x, and then 12x times the 3. That gives me a 24x squared. 12 times 3 gives me a 36, and then the x. And then the same thing with the 9. 9 times 2x, and 9 times 3. So we have 18x, and 9 times 3 is 27. So then we're almost done. We just need to combine like terms. Combine the 12x squared and the 24x squared, and then the x and the x over here, combine those. So 12 plus 24 gives me 36. 36 plus 18 gives me 54. And this would be my solution. I want to show you one other quick one to point out something that we're going to use in a lesson later in this chapter. And that is if you have 1 plus and 1 minus. So notice they're identical. They're not squared, but one is positive, one is negative. Still the same thing. I distribute 2x times 2x, 2x times negative 3. That gives me 4x squared, and then negative 6x. 3 times 2x and 3 times negative 3 would give me be a 6x and then negative 9. And actually, I'm sorry, I kind of switched the signs on you. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times a negative 3, that would be a negative 6x right here. That'd be a negative, and then 3 times a positive 2x would give you a plus 6x. Either way, same thing, negative and then a positive. Negative 6x plus a 6x, those will cancel each other out. So we got 4x squared minus 9. So I do want to point that out where if you have 1 plus and 1 minus like this, everything else is the same. The middle terms will cancel, and I'm left with just a 4x squared minus 9. So that concludes our lesson for today, and we will see you next time.